In today's video we're going to be jumping into some more Path of Exile 2, and this time I'm going to be going over some tips and tricks that I wish I'd known earlier. Now obviously there's going to be a whole bunch of people that know a lot about Path of Exile 2 because they've been veterans to the previous game, but I think there'll also be quite a few newcomers to it, as well as some people that will be holding off to purchase it until the full game is released. These top 10 tips should really help those players out and just make the game a lot more enjoyable overall. So the first one we're going to be looking at is going to be a nice and simple tip, and obviously as you're playing you're going to be defeating enemies, you're going to be picking up a whole bunch of loot, but there's two types that you should definitely look out for. One of which is going to be anything that has a socket on it, and the other one is going to be anything that you see that has quality written on it. These two are going to be absolutely perfect because you're going to want to make sure that you start to salvage them as soon as you unlock the salvage bench. As soon as you do this, you're going to get different types of resources that you can build up and then start using on pieces of gear that you really want to put into your build in order to make yourself a whole bunch more powerful. Obviously upgrading the quality is going to really help you out by giving you increase to some of the stats on the gear, and if you've got a nice piece of equipment that you think you'll be using sometime, why not socket it once or twice depending on which piece of gear it is, and then you'll be able to insert a rune into it. These will have various stats and effects that can boost your power level and really help you out to start ploughing your way through the game. As with most ARPGs, gear is going to be an absolutely massive thing in Path of Exile 2, but sometimes you might be a little bit overwhelmed and not sure exactly how it affects your character overall. Sometimes you'll pick things up and you'll be umming and ahhing, is it better, is it worse, because the stats may look very similar, so how exactly do you check to see if they are going to increase your damage or make your character better overall at a glance? Here for example, if we're looking at two of the weapons, both of these are pretty decent weapons with your two-handers, but what you want to do when you're chucking new stuff onto your build, make sure you open up your skill bar screen, and it's going to give you a little DPS check over on the left hand side. This can really help you out, especially if you're kind of investing heavily into certain skills or elemental types, and equipping and de-equipping some of your items will obviously significantly change these. If you need to check a little bit more in depth, don't forget you can also check under the advanced options tab in order to see exactly what's going on with your skills. This should give a whole list of everything that's going on, and it's just a great way to delve more in depth into some of the skills you'll be using. Another thing you'll want to do from time to time will be to sell some of your items, because in this game trading is just going to be an absolutely massive thing that you definitely want to get involved in. If you picked up a nice item like that two-hander that you saw me grab earlier, then don't forget, if it's something you want to sell on or see if it's worth a pretty penny, then go over to the Path of Exile 2 trade website, tap in what you're looking for under the item category, and then go in and make sure you put everything else underneath your filters. I tend to find the best way is do it a little bit less than what you've actually got on your item, and that way you'll be able to see a lower threshold for it and work out exactly how much these things are worth. Some of the modifiers on weapons can really make things worth a whole bunch more for your currency, such as this one that had extra melee levels on it times 6. After I tapped it all in, you work out this is actually quite a nice tasty piece, so it's definitely something you wouldn't want to deconstruct, and if you can and you've got the available resources, it might be something you want to boost up with quality, chuck a couple of sockets in, make it as powerful as possible, and then just see how much you can actually get for it, whether it be exalts or in this case hopefully a couple of divines. Another really nice tip is whenever you want to reset your instance, you can do this, and it's going to be perfect for anyone who wants to refarm certain areas, whether it be to get a certain chest, defeat certain bosses hoping for a nice drop, or just any reason you want to actually go in and do an area over and over again. So for example, this one, we're going to pop into the jungle ruins, and as you can see we're starting a new instance straight away. Then as you're making your way around the area, you're going to be finding a whole bunch of checkpoints, and you're going to find yourself a waypoint, clearing through the waves of enemies and just making your way around the map. But as soon as you take out the guy you're after, for us, it's going to be this little mini boss that I'm sure you've seen if you've played the game before, and then hopefully you get that nice drop for you. We had no luck this time, but if you did, you'd be able to pick it up and then reset the instance and hopefully farm him again. In order to do this, you're going to need to go back to the waypoint, so again, click on any of your checkpoints, make your way back to it, and then you're just going to want to open a new instance by using your instance manager. On Xbox it's by holding in the A button, but if I remember correctly, I believe on PC it's by left click or right click on your mouse. Another thing that can really help out new players, especially those that are struggling a little bit with the game, will be knowing how to farm exalts very nice and early. The best way I've found is by progressing through the main storyline until you've managed to get all the way to the Chaos Trials, and then you're going to need a few inscribed ultimatums. If you haven't got any, remember you can just bop straight over to the trade website and purchase some on there, and the ones you're going to be looking for will be some of the lower end ones, the ones that give you 4 trials. These are going to be very easy to clear, you're not going to worry about them too much because the enemies inside are going to be really easy to defeat, and the boss shouldn't be able to give you too much of a tough time as well. Then just go straight through the trial, clear out all the ads that you can, try and make it as fast as possible, and then make it all the way to the boss. Once you take them out, you might be lucky in order to get yourself something nice there, as very often they'll drop you a nice exalted orb or something along those lines, like a chaos orb. But then the main thing you could be after is a little bit further on, when you click on this just here, and it always drops you one of those soul cores. Soul cores are absolutely amazing because at the moment they're trading for a really nice high currency, usually anywhere between 5 to around about 7 exalted orbs. So all you've got to do, head back to your hideout or go back to one of your villages, go over to your currency exchange and sell off exactly what you've got. If you're very lucky, you may be able to get one of the crazy rare ones which sells off for over 300 of these exalted orbs, but honestly they're very rare. But even without this, most times you'll be able to make yourself around about 5 to 7 exalted orbs every single run you do of this. Now for the next tip, I'm not going to dwell on this one much because I'm sure most people will know this, but this is just for people who are brand new to the game, and that's going to be your permanent upgrades. Go over to your map screen and you're going to see that any of these icons right here, anything with the plus symbol, is going to be something you'll definitely want to pay attention to. If you bring up your map legend, you're going to see it shows you a whole bunch of icons, and some of them are going to be ones that you're definitely going to want to complete on your campaign. Most times you'll be able to pick these up twice, one on your standard campaign and one on cruel difficulty, and look for anything that says this permanent upgrade, because these can give you anything from health boosts, skill points, spirit, and of course those all vital resists. Another thing that's really good to know about is if you're planning to do your own skill tree, so you're not going to be bopping onto a website, you want to do it yourself, you want to make a crazy fun build and see exactly what you can come up with, don't forget, one of the main things you want to do is see exactly how this affects your character. If you're picking up some things, sometimes you might think, how does that actually work out? Is it the right node to pick up? But if you click on more info, you'll be able to see exactly how it's going to affect your build overall. More cast speed, how much DPS does that turn into? Is it going to be worth picking up? Should you pick something else up in its stead? This right here is going to give you everything you need to know with the stats, which again is absolutely ideal for anyone who's not sure exactly what they're doing. Now for our next tip, this is one that's really helpful, as you'll be able to create powerful skills very early on. Again, one of the things you can do if you haven't actually got hold of these, but I think even if you play through the game you'll probably be grabbing yourself quite a few of them, because you're going to want to get hold of some Jeweler's Orbs as well as some Val Orbs. The great thing about this, at the moment, hopefully things stay similar to how they are, but Exalted Orbs are worth a whole bunch of these lesser ones. If however you are after trying to really boost your skills the normal way, then you're looking at getting hold of some of the greater and the perfect Jeweler Orbs, which are ridiculously priced at the moment. You're going to need a whole bunch of currency in order to get hold of these, and if you want to max out your character and the skills they'll be using, this is going to set you back ridiculous amount of divines, so you really have to be putting in and investing hundreds and hundreds of hours into the game. However, the way you can do things a little bit simpler and a little bit of a quick fix is by getting hold of those lesser Jeweler Orbs and some Val Orbs as well, and then you're going to try and corrupt one of your skills. You're going to want to grab yourself a whole bunch of uncut skill gems, create quite a few of the actual skill you're after, and then once you've got them lined up, you're going to need to use one of the lesser Jeweler Orbs on each one in order to give it another socket. This is going to be guaranteed, so you'll have 3 sockets on each of those skills, but then after that you're going to have to rely on a bit of RNG, as you'll be using a Val Orb on it, as you're going to be trying to corrupt them. Use the Val Orb on them and it will give you a few different varying results. I'll chuck them on the screen, but ultimately the main one you're going to be wanting is going to be the extra support slot. Sometimes you'll be very lucky with this, you might get on your first try, other times it may take 4, 5, 6 or even a few more, but most times I found it took around about 5. Obviously you can't do much with this skill after that, but being able to have 4 support skills on it because you've got 4 sockets plus the actual skill move can really help you out and make you very powerful a lot earlier than you probably would have been. Now one thing, as you're starting to head closer to that end game or even a little bit into the probably cruel difficulty, you'll want to know about your resistances. You've got a whole bunch of stats going on with your character, and when you play through a normal campaign you don't really have to worry about these at all, as most times you're just going to be gearing up normally. You can kind of make your way through the enemies without it affecting you too much. As things start to ramp up in difficulty, and especially when you start doing your maps at endgame, resistances are going to be something you 100% want to invest in. You want to be able to hit 75 on all of them, as that's going to be your standard cap to make sure you negate a lot of your damage. So if I bop over to one of my higher characters, we look at my warrior just over here, you're going to see that I've hit 75 on all of them, except for my chaos resists, and they'll be the toughest ones to max out, and anything above that unfortunately isn't really going to take much effect. But the reason you're doing this is so that when they do hit you with these effects, it doesn't absolutely decimate your health, because the lower you've got of these, the faster your health's going to go down, and sometimes you'll even be one-shot by some crazy damage. What you want to do is be on the lookout for some gear pieces that have elemental resistances on them, and whenever possible, if you get dropped with 2 of them, then this is really going to make your life easier. Try and aim for anything that's got above 30, because these are going to be some really nice high rolls, and if you do find these, put them in your stash, and it may be something you'll be putting on later on. You can get elemental resist on all of your gear pieces, and if you are struggling, remember your rings also bring a whole bunch of these, so try to get them as high as possible on both of those. Another great thing with rings, you can also get an amethyst ring that's going to help a little bit of your chaos resist once more. Remember, socketing things as well, you'll be able to put some runes in there that'll give you some resist if you're struggling to hit your markers. And another great thing, if you do need a little bit more on your chaos resist, then like we spoke about earlier, one of those soul cores, this one just here, the soul core of Takati, will give you 7% extra for every one you slot. Last but definitely not least, I'm going to be going over your weapon sets and how you go about using them and activating them. This works out absolutely ideal for anyone who wants a little bit of variety with their build, and is perfect for anyone who finds 2 amazing weapons that they want to be able to utilise. So in this, we're going to bop over to our trader, grab ourselves another weapon, and now you can see I've got 2 completely different ones. One's going to be a fire staff, and the other one's going to be using lightning. Then I'm going to chuck the lightning one just over into the second slot, and as you can see, this one's now equipped on my back, so it's absolutely perfect. However, from there you're going to want to go over to your bind screen and then make sure you put the weapon swap somewhere on one of your bars. When you activate this, you'll be able to toggle between each set, making things absolutely ideal if you wanted to do a little bit of different damage. But as well as that, a great thing that you can now focus on will be going over to your skill tree and allocating nodes in a slightly different way. So I'm going to refund these nodes just so you can see things a little bit easier. But then what you can be able to do is go over and you can be able to allocate each one of your nodes to either a main position, which pretty much means it's using it in your first and secondary slot, or alternately you can select it for your weapon slot 1 or your weapon slot 2. This works out absolutely ideal, especially when you start putting together a build that you know you're going to be using for certain types of things. For example, if you wanted one that was a little bit more versed in area effect, allowing you to clear through the maps nice and fast, or if you're after one that's a little bit more aiming towards single targets, for example those big bosses and such. Just keep making your way throughout the skill tree and allocate them which way you deem best for that weapon set. So for your first one, you might want to make sure you're picking up all of the spell damage and such, but then for your second set, you may well veer off and go a completely different path. Honestly, there's no right or wrong way of doing this, but it will alter your build drastically, and it can really help out in certain areas, and definitely on certain characters, to kind of bring out their full potential. Warriors, I'd say, is probably one of the main classes that will benefit from this, as you'll be able to get a lot of single strike damage, and then be able to swap over to a lot of AoE, helping you clear the maps faster. Right, so ultimately those are going to be my top 10 tips, everything that I wish I knew at the very start of the game, and I think they'll really help people out if you want to progress faster and just make things a whole bunch easier for yourself. A lot of these tips are perfect for beginners, but some may well be something you didn't actually know even if you played for a while, and all of them will definitely help you out at some point. There's going to be a whole bunch more Path of Exile 2 content away from me. As always, for all things gaming, take care. I'll see you on the next day.